I am Elaine Porter, 62, and on Christmas night my son changed my locks. I have paid this mortgage for 17 winters, stitched curtains by that kitchen window, and memorized the creak in the third stair like a heartbeat. I can read a pulse from a fingertip. 30 years as a nurse taught me that. But nothing prepares you for the moment your own front door flatlines under your key. If family is shelter, then why am I standing in the snow with my name on the deed and a chain on the other side of it? The key stalls at half, turn, as if hitting a small, invisible bone. I try again. Metal scrapes, then gives me nothing. The porch light paints the snow gold and makes my breath look like smoke from a house I once knew. I knock. The chain answers first. A quick, bright clink. Then the door cracks open just enough to show my son's shoulder and the peppermint glow of the tree behind him. My daughter-in-law hovers in the background, the way people hover over a decision they already made. "Tomorrow, Mom," my son says, one hand on the door, one eye sliding away like a guilty second hand on a clock. New locks. It's safer. Safer than the woman who pays for the door. My voice is even. The way you talk to a patient who thinks the pain is lying to them. It's temporary, my daughter-in-law says, soft but precise. You've been forgetful lately. We're worried you'll leave it unlocked. There are diagnoses you can make without lab work, and then there are accusations pretending to be concern. My phone shivers in my glove. A notification blooms across the screen. Auto, pay posted, mortgage payment received. Elaine M. Porter, the familiar account number. The time stamp 4:12 p.m., right about when the cinnamon sugar cookies were cooling on my counter. I angle the screen into the crack of the door. I just paid for the walls you're using to keep me out. He inhales. I can almost hear his heart trip, then steady. Tomorrow, he repeats, softer, and closes the door. The chain drops, a period at the end of a sentence I didn't write. Cold climbs my wrists. My boot prints stack in two orderly ovals like a signature you can't forge. I raise the phone and take a photo. The new lock, the chain, the wash of porch light, the small storm of snow. Ownership is not only a deed in a drawer, it's the slow, patient pile of proof, time-stamped, geotagged, unarguable. Across the street, Mrs. Carter lowers her curtain and leaves a triangle of light on me, the neighbor's version of a witness statement. I tip 2 fingers from my hat. I don't want her choosing sides on Christmas. The diner at the corner is open 24 hours. Inside, coffee tastes like it has had a long day, and the waitress calls me honey without looking up from her crossword. I plug in my phone, open notes, and type the title, a Peppa Awile. Under it, I list 1 photo of lock, chain, snow, 2 of mortgage, auto, pay screenshot, 3 neighbor statement, 4 doorbell camera, request access. I add a 5th. 5 bank call at opening. The lock wasn't the first thing that changed tonight. Something in me clicked too. The part that stops knocking and starts documenting. Families talk about love like it is the answer to every question. I've learned it's also evidence: what you sign, what you pay, what you keep safe. If safety is the story they want to tell, then tomorrow I will bring the facts that don't blink. I wrap both hands around the coffee and let the heat work its way back into my bones. The house will sleep. I will not. Morning has a dial tone, and I intend to pick up. The diner's light doesn't care that it's Christmas. Yellow, even, indifferent. I take the booth by the window and wrap both hands around a mug so thin I can feel the heat crawl into my wrists. The waitress calls me honey without looking up from her crossword, which feels like mercy, a kindness that doesn't require a story. 9% battery. I plug in by the sugar caddy and open the locksmith's holiday hours email. I type like I'm writing discharge orders: name, address, the situation in 3 clean sentences. I attach photos, the new lock and chain, the snow on my boots. The mortgage, auto, pay that hit at 4:12 p.m. My finger trembles when I press send. I tell myself it's from the cold, not the way a door can close like a verdict. The reply lands almost at once, so fast it might be automated. Will need proof of ownership. 6 words that plant a stake in the road: clear, reasonable, unyielding. I reach for my purse out of habit and picture the hall closet at home, the deed with its raised seal, the insurance policy in its blue folder, the tax bill with my name printed exactly the way my husband used to write it on birthday cards. All of it sturdy, tangible, behind a chain I didn't latch. I have digital copies. I write back. I start harvesting what I can: the bank statement that still smells like month end, the insurance card from my email, A screenshot from the county property portal. I file them into a new note titled PayPal and feel something in me steady. Ownership, it turns out, is not just a deed in a drawer. It's the stitching between receipts, timestamps, and the quiet persistence of facts. The waitress freshens my coffee. "Cold night," she says. "It is," I answer, and let the rest sit where it belongs, unsaid. Words like daughter, in-law, and forgetful feel sharp in the mouth. They can cut before you know what you're bleeding. In the hospital, we used to ask, safe for whom? On whose evidence? Language that sounds compassionate can hide a restraint. Safety, if it's real, requires consent. Chains do not. I set tomorrow in motion like lining up instruments on a tray. 800 a.m. Call the bank. County recorder for a certified deed copy. 10:30. Doorbell camera support to restore admin access. I add, Mrs. Carter. Witness statement. Saw locksmith well of 2024 afternoon. Some disputes don't need volume, only a person who can say I saw. Another email from the locksmith pings. If you can send an electronic certification or bank confirmation, we can come after hours. Holiday rate applies. I write agree, include the diner address. I'm not waiting on a porch I pay for. And attach my ID, the mortgage account number, the screenshots I've collected. Without paper, truth is a chart unsigned, easy to set aside on a tray labeled later. The coffee cools, but my hands are warm. I stop rehearsing a speech for my son and start building a record for myself. Love is a story families like to tell. Documentation is the part that stands up straight on a desk. When the door closes on you, you learn to knock with paper. By morning, the snow is the texture of beaten egg whites. Soft and obedient, I come back to the porch with my phone set to burst mode. First, the new lock brass face bright as a coin. Hairline scratches like stray hairs around the keyway, a dusting of metal filings clinging to the paint. I step back for the wider frame, door, knob. The chain glinting through the seam. And then lean in again on the screws' shiny, untouched heads seated beside the old brushstrokes where I missed with the autumn touch-up. Every detail is a sentence. I'm learning to take dictation. I crouch to the snow. My boot prints sit in tidy pairs, the toe impressions deeper where I braced and waited. I lay a quarter at the edge for scale, then a tape measure. Less poetry, more math. In the hospital, we said it often measure, don't guess. Each shot lands in the Photos app wearing a timestamp, a location. Proof, in the dull way truth wears its work clothes. Mrs. Carter opens her door with a brittle creak and steps out, a knit scarf wrapped high on her chin and a tin of cookies anchored under her arm. Elaine, she calls, then crosses the street in careful, plunging steps. I'm all right, I tell her, and I mean I'm functioning. I show her the photos. Could I ask a favor? She nods, the nod of someone who kept a vigil at a window last night. Christmas Eve, around 3:30. She says, eyes tilted inward, consulting the memory. White van. Locksmith 2047 on the side. Your daughter-in-law spoke to them. Papers, maybe. The man knelt by the lock with a little case. 20 minutes. They pulled away before dark. I open notes and type as she speaks name, time, sequence. I ask her to read it back so the time is hers, not mine. She signs the bottom with a shaky flourish, the cold making her brave and imprecise. I put the cookie tin on my step like a placeholder and thank her. Kindness is its own receipt sometimes. Sugar and flour proofing in a kitchen you're not allowed to enter. Inside my phone. The doorbell app demands a login I haven't had to enter in months. I key in the old email and wait for the code that doesn't arrive. When I tap, forgot password, the screen replies account doesn't exist or admin email has changed. I call support. The technician's voice is young and careful. Our system shows the admin email was updated at 3:38 p.m. on December 24, he says. I can't disclose the new address for privacy reasons. If you're the property owner, submit documents and we can escalate a restoration request. So I do what I've done my whole adult life, I chart. Subject line. Doorbell admin change. Request to restore owner access. Attachments close, ups of the new screws and filings, the wide shot of the door with the chain. The quarter for scale footprints, the mortgage auto pay, a photo of Mrs. Carter's statement, screenshots of the app error. In medicine, a wound is closed by small stitches, placed evenly one after another. Here the sutures are data points 330, van 3D38, admin change, the color of brass, the shape of a trid. I take one last photograph from the sidewalk, cropping the eaves and the churned up snow into the same frame. Paper trails don't boom like thunder. They accumulate like breath on cold air. Seen, then gone, and seen again if you look from the right angle. Facts, fed by details, learn to stand up by themselves. At 8 sharp, I call the mortgage servicer. The recorded voice is a corridor of options. Press 1 for English, press 2 to repeat, press 0 to speak with a representative. I press 0, the hold music is thin as cellophane. Mortgage services, this is Hannah. I'll need to verify you. I recite the address, date of birth, last 4 of my social, and, because she asks, the amount of last month's payment. I open the screenshot in my POPR folder and read the numbers aloud the way I used to double. Check dosages on a night shift slowly, exactly twice. Thank you, Miss Porter. I'm pulling up your file now. A pause, the soft percussion of keys. One moment I do see a recent change on the account. The HVAC hums in the diner. Steady as a heart monitor. What change? I keep my voice flat, the tone you use when you want facts to do the speaking. An authorized third party was added, she says, professional as a fresh scalpel. This allows someone to discuss the account with us using verification. The timestamp shows last week. I swallow past something that feels like a dry pill. Who added it? Our notes indicate the addition came through the online portal, she says. I'm not permitted to disclose device or IP details. And the name listed. I ask. Because I am the primary account holder, she's allowed to read it. She says the name I have said for decades, sideline cheers, band concerts, the clumsy knot of his wedding tie. Not a stranger. Not a third-party service. My son. I set my cup down to hide the tremor in my hand. What would normally be required to add someone? Typically, you'd call us to generate a unique code for that person. Or you'd submit signed written authorization. Hannah reads as if from an internal script. In this case, the system shows the addition was completed using valid security credentials through the customer portal. I think of afternoons with my phone charging on the kitchen counter. 2-factor codes blinking across a shared screen, the small ordinary doors we leave unlocked in a family. Authorization doesn't always need a stolen key. Sometimes it borrows your trust and calls itself safety. I want it revoked, I say. Remove all third-party access. Place a no third-party discussion flag. Change all correspondence to this P.O. box. I read the box number, careful as an order on a chart, and require dual verification for any future changes. Understood, Ms. Porter. I'm sending a secure link now and will stay on the line. My phone pings. I tap the link, enter the code, and sign my name with the practice stroke that still feels like a promise. On her end, checkmarks shift from gray to green, revoke, reset flag. I also need a 30-day audit trail, I add. All access and change events, including the timestamp of the authorization. I've submitted that request, she says. You'll receive it within 5 business days. When the call ends, I rest my forehead against the cool window. Outside, the snow has climbed another rung on the curb. Some locks are made of metal, some are made of language. Both leave marks if you know how to read them, timestamps, names, codes, and the quiet certainty of a signature that is mine to give. If someone walked in through the back door labeled authorization, then the way forward is through the front, policy, procedure paper. I gather them the way I gather breath evenly, on purpose. In medicine, we teach new nurses to speak the order out loud before they sign it. Say what you intend, then make it real. That's how I start the morning. I say it first. Remove any authorization that doesn't carry my signature. The sentence feels like a pulse found under a cuff. Hannah is still on the line while I navigate the secure link. The portal asks for a new password, a code texted to my phone, then another code from email. I change the email recovery to moving it to the P.O. box I opened, a mailbox that doesn't wink on a kitchen counter. The page that loads is clinical toggles, checkboxes, the anatomy of control laid bare. Under permissions, Hannah says, you'll see authorized parties. There is one name, familiar as my own handwriting across kindergarten permission slips. I click the gray trash can icon. A pop-up asks if I'm sure. Safety theater, I think, and then I click yes because some rituals are worth keeping. We'll also set no third-party discussion on your profile, Hannah adds. I scroll until I find it and move the slider from off to on. It turns green. A small traffic light that belongs to me. Ms. Porter, for your protection, I recommend dual verification for any future changes, she says. Add it, I tell her. And lock out device recognition. No remembered browsers. In a hospital chart, you'd call that clearing the slate. Here it's scrubbing fingerprints I didn't leave. Hannah reads back the chain of actions like a nurse performing a timeout before surgery. Revocation of third-party authorization submitted. No third-party discussion flag set. Correspondence address updated to P.O. Box. Dual verification enforced for profile changes. Device recognition cleared. Each item lands in me with the relief of an incision that drains. Who has access to this account now? I ask. She pauses to check something I will never see. You do, she says. Only you. It is an ordinary sentence that rearranges a room. I lean back against the diner booth and let it settle. I picture the house, the porch light, the third stairs groan, the curtains I hemmed too short and lied to myself about. All of it under the canopy of a single certainty: my name means what it says. My phone buzzes confirmation. Authorization revoked. Another email chases it. Security change received. A third arrives like a lock clicking home: third-party access disabled. The subject lines are dry as saltines. I open them anyway, hungry. They read like discharge papers: you came in. We treated the wound. Here is how you keep it clean. Ms. Porter. Hannah says gently. Anything else today? Yes, I answer. I want the audit log for the last 30 days sent to my P.O. box. Paper that walks at my pace. Not at the speed of someone else's thumb. We'll mail it, she says. You'll have it within 5 business days. When the call ends, I sign once more, an affidavit the legal team emails over, stating I did not authorize additional parties. I write my full name, the one my husband used to fold into birthday cards, and shore up the signature with a line that doesn't shake. There are signatures we do for others, field trips, flu shots, and signatures we do for ourselves. This one feels like stitching my name into the lining of a coat, a place fingers find when weather turns. Outside, a plow scrapes the street, clearing a straight path where last night was drift. Control isn't a feeling, it's a record. I don't argue with doors, I document them. And then I claim the keys with the only authority that matters: mine. County buildings all smell the same. Paper warmed by fluorescent lights, a trace of toner. The faint bite of winter on people's coats as they settle into chairs. I take a number from the red dispenser and sit under a wall clock that's 5 minutes fast. The sign over the counter says recorder, assessor tax in 3 fonts that don't agree with each other, which feels about right: one place for where you live, another for what it's worth, and a third to remind you neither belongs to you without proof. 79. The speaker crackles. I'm 81. I gather my folder anyway. P.O. Box, receipt, driver's license, mortgage account page, the photo of the lock, and hold it like a shield. When the clerk calls my number, she has the calm face of someone who has learned to let other people's emergencies move across her like weather. Certified copy of my deed, I say. Elaine M. Porter. Parcel ends in 214. I slide my ID through the slot. She types, nails making a small metronome on the keys. Purchase date. I tell her the year my husband died. The year I told myself I could carry the whole house and then did. She prints something, disappears, returns with a thicker paper that has an embossed seal that catches the overhead light like a moon. This is your grant deed, recorded on file, she says. Do you want it certified? Yes. The word has weight. She feeds it through a machine that thumps and leaves a raised stamp that makes the page feel alive under my fingers. I read it right there at the counter, lips moving like a child learning to pronounce her own name. A grantee, Elaine M. Porter, a married woman as her sole and separate property. No co-owner, no joint tenancy, no afterthoughts. The margins show the instrument number and a date that feels like an anniversary: the day I put my name on the line. My chest loosens. It's not vindication, it's oxygen. While you're here, I ask, can you check the current mailing address on my property tax file? That's the assessor desk, she says, tilting her chin to the left, but keeps my parcel pulled up. We share a system. If you have ID, I can read it to you. I nod. She scrolls. I watch her eyes shift the way a nurse's eyes shift when a monitor changes tone. It lists a mailing address different from the site address, she says carefully. She reads an address I know by heart. The townhouse where my son and his wife get their packages, the place with the porch swing I helped hang last spring. When was that changed? I ask. She clicks into a field I can't see. Change log December 20. Channel online form. I picture the little boxes on the county portal, the way owner's mailing address sits innocently under updates. Not a lock, not even a chain. A redirect. You don't have to bar a door if you can turn the mail another way. Tax bills, delinquency notices, escrow adjustments, the quiet arteries that feed a house, all learning a new route that does not pass my hands. I didn't authorize that, I say. The clerk doesn't blink. She has a drawer labeled forms and pulls out one with a blank line for owner's mailing address and another for affidavit of correction. We'll need your signature, a copy of your ID, and the certified deed. We'll change it back and flag the account to notify by email of any future edits. I fill the forms on the ledge by the stapler, printing my letters in block capitals that take up the space allotted. The affidavit asks for a reason. I write unauthorized change. Owner did not submit. It looks plain. Honest things often do. When she stamps my correction, we make a small ceremony of it, her sliding the carbon copies into envelopes, me paying the fee with exact bills, both of us naming each step as we do it. Outside, a father is teaching a child to step over a slush ridge without soaking her sneakers. She puts both arms out for balance, doesn't look down, and makes it. On the sidewalk, I hold the deed against my chest. Lines, seals, dates, ink that points back to the origin. Paper knows the way home even when people forget. The mail will follow me again. The bills will call me by name. And if anyone asks who owns that front door and its brand, new lock, I have a page that answers without raising its voice. I choose the cafe with the picture window and the burnt sugar smell that clings to your coat. Neutral ground with good lighting. I pick the table near the plants so there is something alive between us. When my son and his wife walk in, their cheeks are pink from the cold, and for a second I see them the way a stranger would a young couple who could be here to pick out a crib or sign a lease. I stand because I still do. Coffee. I ask, already knowing their orders from holidays and moving days. He says, black, like this is simple. She asks for almond milk, like control can be softened. The barista hisses steam through milk. Cups land on a tray. I slide into my seat and take a breath that tastes like cinnamon and old arguments. I place 2 envelopes on the table, not a slam, not a flourish, just paper finding the surface. One holds the certified deed with the raised seal that presses back when you touch it. The other holds the mortgage statement and the email confirming revocation of third-party access. My daughter-in-law reaches for her cup before she reaches for the truth. "We did it for your safety," she says, and the phrase fits in her mouth like a rehearsed line. "You've been forgetful and it's winter, the lock." Well, we thought, for my safety, I repeat as if tasting a word on a tongue depressor. And for whose authority? I slide the deed toward them. Grantee Elaine M. Porter, as her sole and separate property. The embossed seal silvers the light. I slide the statement next to the auto, pay with my account number. The confirmation that all third-party privileges have been revoked, the new flag that refuses conversation with anyone but me. She looks at the page, then at me. "Paper doesn't mean you're safe," she says. "In a hospital." I tell her, safety without consent is a restraint. I keep my voice at bedside volume. "You locked me out of a house I pay for. You changed the admin email on my doorbell. The county redirected my tax bills to your address. Can you see how that looks in a chart?" My son has not spoken. He fixes his eyes on the lip of his cup, as if the coffee might spill and give him something else to catch. The last time he was this quiet, he had a fever and a split lip, and we counted his breaths together. I want him to look up and be 9 again, desperate to tell me the truth so we can deal with it. Instead, silence sits next to him, filling out forms in neat block letters. "We were worried you'd leave the door unlocked," she says, fingers edging toward his sleeve. Her tone makes worry sound generous. "People take advantage." They do, I agree. They take advantage at mailboxes and login screens, and with words like "for your safety." I turn to my son. "Did you add yourself as an authorized party to my mortgage account?" I ask. Not a challenge, an intake question. He touches the cup. The tiniest nod, or a tremor. On paper there would be a check mark informed, yes, no. Here there is only air tightening. His silence is not empty, it is witnessed. I stack the envelopes, square their corners. "Here's what happens next," I say, and outline it like discharge instructions. No access, no changes, no keys, not until we agree in writing with a lawyer present. Family counseling, if we are to keep the word family. I slide a 3rd page across the correction forms from the county. "You will sign where it asks who changed the address and why." He finally looks at me, eyes wet, almost grateful for the clarity. She draws in a breath like a match being struck. Outside, a bus sighs and kneels for a waiting passenger. Inside, none of us moves for a moment. Sometimes a signature is ink on a line. Sometimes it is a mouth choosing not to argue. Either way, it binds. I hire my own locksmith the way I'd order a stat lab clear. Documented with the time, Northside Lock and Safe sends a confirmation to my P.O. Box email. Work order Hey1 1873. Service description rekey all exterior cylinders. Install new deadbolt on side door, 5 keys cut. Restricted blank. The subject line lands in my inbox like a clean suture visible holding. At the house. The technician, Rob in a navy jacket stitched with his name, asks for proof of ownership. I hand him the certified deed. The raised seal catches noon light like a tiny moon. He scans it with the square glow of his phone and nods. All good, Miss Porter. The way he says my name is a key turning back toward me. Metal sings in short. Bright filings as he works. He lays parts out on a towel, precise as an instrument tray, and I photograph everything: old cylinders, new pins, the stamped heads of screws. Rob installs high security cylinders that require a registered locksmith to duplicate keys. People can stamp "do not duplicate" all day. He says without judgment. This system's different. Paper trail at the supplier, not just the hardware store. When he's done, he sets 5 keys in a small envelope and writes the keyway and today's date across the seam. He sticks a service tag on the inside of the door with his company's number in the work order. I ask for the invoice via email and a printed copy. He hands me both. I sign with my full name, the loop on the P clean and deliberate. He countersigns. 2 signatures that belong to the same story. Inside, I open the security panel. The beeps are familiar, the way a monitor's chirp becomes background until you need it. I change the master code, the safe word with the monitoring company, and add a Duras code no one else knows. On the portal, I remove every contact but mine and flag the account NOO, a CS, unauthorized users. The list looks like a visitor log I'm not keeping anymore. I screenshot each change timestamp, confirmation number, the polite paragraph that says only I can cancel dispatch. A car door slams outside. My son's silhouette blurs in the frosted glass. The handle turn stops. He knocks, a rhythm I used to know. I inhale once even, and call the non-emergency police line, not to escalate, but to document. Owner on site, I say. Locks rekeyed. I have the deed and service invoice. There may be a dispute. 2 officers arrive with the neutrality of uniforms that have seen birthday parties and breakups in the same hour. I show them the deed. Rob's work order, the mortgage statement with yesterday's revocations. It's a civil matter. The shorter one says gently, pen already moving. Schedule access with clear times if property needs to be retrieved. If either party violates, call us. Here's your incident number. He tears the slip in 25-18-493. It's just ink, but it steadies like a wrist under my hand. My son speaks through the storm door, softer than I expect. We were trying to help. The words fog and vanish on the glass. I'm sure you believed that, I say. It isn't a verdict, it's a chart note, patient states. Well, use a lawyer and a calendar, not a chain. The officers nod at both of us. We pick a time, daylight, 2 hours, a list of what can be taken. I write it down in block letters and hold the paper up to the door so everyone sees the same thing. When they leave, I email the incident number to myself and attach the deed. The invoice, screenshots, the photo of the keys sealed in their envelope. In nursing, boundaries are sterile fields you keep clean or everything gets contaminated. Here, the sterile field is law and evidence. Locks are metal, they're only as strong as the procedure that keeps them honest. I press my palm against the door, not to push, just to feel the weight on my side. The new code sits in my head like a verse I've finally learned by heart. The house clicks once as the heat kicks on, a body caring for itself. Rigid lines on paper, numbers in a system, a seal that won't lie. That's the kind of safety I will accept. Not because someone says I need it, but because I signed for it, and I can prove that I did. I spend the morning turning money into sentences. On the dining table, mine again. Leveled by a folded coaster under one leg, I lay out what a bank would call artifacts and what I call a story. Auto pay confirmations printed and clipped by month. Homeowners' insurance declarations with my name spelled the way it is on the deed. Property tax statements, site address, parcel number, the correction form I filed yesterday stamped received. I export my phone's call log, highlighting the dates and duration. 2021-7, Doorbell support 1403, County Recorder 948, the non-emergency police line 6 and 12th. A paper trail is only as useful as its index, so I make one tabbed in blue and slip it into a binder that snaps shut with a decent practical click. On my laptop, I build a 40L and give the files names that will testify without me 2025-12-24 to mortgage at autopay, PDF 2025-want-25 doorbell admin changes screenshot, ping, 2025 cert deed, PDF Fuisi found 26 incident 202493. Jaggy facts like to be addressed properly, they stand straighter if you call them by date and purpose. I call a lawyer recommended by a nurse I used to precept. A woman with a measured voice who has seen custody schedules and conservatorships and siblings who loved each other until a will was read. Tell me only what you can prove, she says, which is a relief after days of adjectives. I read from my binder. She stops me twice to ask, "Do you have that in writing?" And each time I show her I do. "Good," she says at last. "We'll send a notice to cease and desist." The draft arrives an hour later. Paragraphs that have the calm weight of a well-packed suitcase. You are hereby instructed to cease and desist from the 1. Attempting to access or modify any of Ms. Porter's accounts, devices, or services, E2 interfering with mail delivery or county records, U3 representing to any third party that Ms. Porter is unable to manage her affairs, 4. Entering the premises without express written permission and scheduled access. It demands a written acknowledgement and a retraction to the bank and the county, and it routes all future communication through counsel. I read it twice. Then imagine my son's face next to a letter with his name as addressee. Love does not prevent the law, it requires it, sometimes, to keep from becoming something else. Before I can sign the engagement letter, an email pings from my daughter-in-law's account. The subject line is a smile sharpened to a point, concern re Elaine's capacity. The message is 3 paragraphs of tidy sentences, asserting that I have been increasingly forgetful, that they fear for my financial safety, that the lock change was reasonable protective measure. The last line lands like a shove between the shoulder blades. We believe Elaine may be financially incompetent. I read it again to be sure I'm not making it crueler than it is. I forward it to my lawyer without comment and then to myself, where I file it under diffamation because plain words deserve plain labels. The blade isn't sharp, it doesn't sever. But it scuffs. It leaves a mark you can trace later. A bruise you can point to when the doctor asks how long it's been there. I reply once, all further communication will go through counsel. Please see attached notice. No adjectives, no history. My lawyer countersends the cease and desist by certified mail and email, stamped with the kind of authority no porch chain can imitate. I pour tea and watch steam make a small weather system over the mug. In the hospital charts, we had a box for patients' understanding and another for next steps. I understand this much people can say whatever makes them feel like the good ones in the story. Paper, on the other hand, reads the same no matter who opens it. I sign the engagement letter with my full name and tuck the pen back into its cup. Outside, the mail truck shudders to a stop and then moves on, as if the world has decided to keep delivering the things that belong to me. Slander is a dull knife. It doesn't slice clean, it drags. But even a dragging edge can tear dignity if you don't hold it away. This is how I hold it away: dates, signatures, certified envelopes, and the simple discipline of telling the truth in a way that can be stapled to a file. Dr. Patel has the kind of office where bad news would feel out of place, a ficus that actually thrives, children's drawings magneted to a mini fridge, a jar of tongue depressors turned into a bouquet. He greets me like always, by my name, first and last, and we sit. He doesn't rush, he never has. "We'll do this the way we do everything," he says. Carefully, he asks about the date, where we are, who the president is. He has me remember 3 simple words and call them back after a few minutes. We talk through my medications, my mortgage auto pay, the P.O. box I opened. I balance a check register out loud, subtracting without the crutch of a calculator. He watches the way doctors do, eyes scanning not for right answers but for the shape of understanding. When he's done, he types for a while and prints on letterhead that carries more weight than any raised seal. He reads it to me, because that is who he is. Helene M. Porter is oriented to person, place, time, and situation, demonstrates intact memory, judgment, and executive function, and, in my clinical opinion, has full capacity to manage her personal and financial affairs. He adds a line about our long relationship and signs with the steady flourish I recognize from flu shot consents and well, cards. He hands me 2 copies and places a third in my chart, as if capacity were a vaccine we could document and keep. I email the letter to my attorney from the parking lot. She calls within 10 minutes. "This is exactly what I needed," she says. "We'll demand a retraction of any assertion that you're financially incompetent and instruct them not to repeat it to banks, the county, or any service providers." Her voice has the calm of a checked box. Moments later, the draft arrives, a formal withdrawal and retraction demand, citing the doctor's letter, the deed, the audit requests, the incident number. The language is cool enough to put out a fire. We schedule a joint call, counsel on both ends, something between a detente and a mirror. I can hear my son breathing before anyone speaks. My daughter-in-law starts to say she's acting out of concern, and my attorney interrupts, professionally, surgically, "Please address the retraction." There is a long, strange silence, like the moment before a code is called. Then my son clears his throat. "It was me," he says, and the room turns. The credit cards. The teaser rates ran out. I'm behind on a car note. We were getting calls. The words fall out in denominations, the APR he didn't understand until it punished him. The balance transfers that promised relief and delivered cement. Redirecting the taxes, so nothing would be missed. Adding himself, so it wouldn't all fall on you. The lock, he says, as if the metal could carry his shame. I think of the hospital again. How a diagnosis can arrive disguised as a symptom. It wasn't my memory. It was their money. We told ourselves it was safer. He finishes, and the plural is the last thing he owns before it crumbles. My lawyer is kind, which is not the same as soft. "You will send a written retraction today," she says. "You will notify the bank and the county that you misstated capacity. You will not access or attempt to access MIN's Porter's accounts again." She names consequences that sound like they belong in statutes rather than families. After the call, I sit with Dr. Patel's letter on my lap like a warm compress. Capacity isn't only a medical word, it's a legal one and a human one, and today all 3 agree. Money walked into the room, and the story about safety dissolved on contact. The house hasn't moved an inch, but something structural has shifted. Truth has weighed again, and it stands on my side of the line. I start with the money because money is the language the house understands. At the credit union, I open a new checking account with just my name on the line and a balance large enough to be taken seriously. I move the mortgage auto pay there, routing, account, payment date, each field a stitch. I redirect every statement to the PO box that waits like a locked drawer with my key. The teller slides a printed confirmation across the counter. I sign it and ask her to stamp it. Stamps don't make things truer, only harder to argue with. Back at the diner booth that has become my desk, I log into the mortgage portal. The screen remembers nothing of me now. No saved browser, no familiar device. I like that. I set transaction alerts for every withdrawal over $20 and profile change alerts for everything else. If the account so much as sneezes, I want a tissue waiting. Hannah from Mortgage Services calls at noon. Following counsel's request, she says, "We've placed a permanent no third-party discussion flag on your profile. Permanent is a word that scares doctors and comforts lawyers. Here, it settles into my spine like good posture. Any attempt to add an authorized party will require notarized written consent from you and a recorded phone verification," she adds. We read the policy back to each other, line for line. The way nurses read chemo orders to make sure no one's hand slips on the decimal. The audit log arrives by secure link an hour later. I print all 30 pages and lay them out beside my tea like a tarot spread. The entries look bloodless and kind, but they speak. A successful login on December 20 from a device labeled iPhone. Guest. Security questions edited at 2:07 p.m. Profile email changed and then changed back within 6 minutes. A failed attempt to add a secondary email on December 24. A successful portal session marked from a townhouse IP I could find on a map with my eyes closed. Followed by authorized party added at 3:16 p.m. I circle each timestamp with a pencil. A story assembles itself without adjectives. I forward the log to my attorney and to myself. Into the folder whose name's already read like sworn statements. Then I go further than I have to. I move two-factor authentication from text messages to an authenticator app that lives on my phone and nowhere else. I change the recovery email to one no one knows except the me who is typing it, and I write it down on paper that does not sync to the cloud. I revoke every trusted device until the list shows exactly one Elaine phone. For the alarm account, I add a rule. A change cannot be saved unless the new and old codes are entered by the same person, in the same session, with a call back from the monitoring center. Paperwork. Yes, but also a choreography that leaves footprints. When my son texts a single "can we talk," I answer through counsel and attach the audit page that shows the December 24 login. It is not a trap, it is a mirror. He writes "I'm sorry," and I believe the part of him that means it. Belief is not a door, it is a chair, useful, solid, not meant to keep anyone out. That night, I sort the printed confirmations into plastic sleeves and label the binder spine HOSI, govern and CE in block capitals. Governance is a grand word for small disciplines where the bill goes, who picks it up, which hands touch the lock. In the hospital, transparency is how you keep the sterile field, clean gloves on, hands up, everything counted. At home, it's the same. The lock on the door can be drilled in 20 minutes. The lock made of alerts, logs, notarized consent, and a P.O. box, of people saying the rules out loud and signing their names beneath them, takes longer. Outside, the porch light clicks on. I don't need it to find my way to the door anymore, but I leave it burning anyway. A courteous beacon for the truth I have trained to come when called. I spend the afternoon turning a room into a record. On the dining table I make piles: insurance, mortgage, taxes, utilities, each stack squared until the edges behave. I number manila folders in pencil and build an index on a single sheet, the way nurses build a flow sheet so no shift eats another's work. In the study, I empty the file cabinet drawer, count 37 folders, and slide them back in a new order that makes sense to me and no one else. Then I press a strip of red tamper, evident tape across the cabinet seam and initial the ends. Not because I think anyone will tear it, but because good procedure is a fence that doesn't need to shout. The box labeled "Mile, Messy Lives" on the top shelf. I lower it to the desk and tip its contents out like a bin of Ligos coupons, circulars, a church bulletin with my name misspelled, a dryer sheet smell of paper that wants to be useful. In the middle is a tri-fold that doesn't belong to any of them. A United States Postal Service change of address notice, the kind with a faint watermark and a confirmation code in tiny squares. PS 3575, the corner says. The hold address is mine. The new address is the townhouse where my son keeps his porch swing. And there, in blue ink that tries too hard to look casual, is my name. My name has a muscle memory. The loop of the P falls forward, not back, the E hooks high, not low. This version is a costume that doesn't fit the shoulders. I hold it under the desk lamp and feel the smallest part of my scalp lift, the way skin lifts when a stitch is pulled too tight. I take a photo, then another with a ruler laid across the line. I slip the original into a plastic sleeve as if it were biohazard. Not because it is dangerous, but because touching it feels like letting a lie think it's welcome. My attorney answers on the first ring. I have what looks like a PS 3575 with my forged signature. I say, and the words come out clean, each one with a job to do. Forward me a copy. I'll request the SOL log from USPS, she says. We'll need a sworn statement and your ID. They'll redact the submitter, but we can get the channel. The dates, the confirmation, and the effective move type. Her voice is part instruction, part rinse. I'll cite the pending civil matter and an identity misrepresentation. At the post office the next morning, the station manager, gray cardigan, keys like a hymn on his belt, meets me on the side counter by the P.O. boxes. He has already seen my lawyer's letter. We can't give you everything, he says, but we can give you this. He slides a printout across the laminate CO transaction record. It lists type permanent forward, channel online, move effective date 1/20/22. Validation letter sent to 1/20, confirmation a string of numbers that look like a serial for a storm. Under notes customer affidavit of unauthorized change, investigation opened. Another sheet shows the read livery hold. That followed, ending the day I corrected the county address. Paper meeting paper, two strangers shaking hands. Will there be an investigation? I ask, if requested by counsel. He says, tapping the line that already says it has been. Postal inspection will log it. You'll get updates. I walk out with copies in a blue folder. On the sidewalk, a woman wrestles a stroller over a lip of ice while the baby sleeps through the physics. I think about signatures. How they're meant to be a person in shorthand, a whole history compressed into a practice curve. Forgery is a kind of flattery that steals. Ink can try on my name all it wants. It cannot fake the date the form was filed, the device that submitted it, the moment the mail turned and went to the wrong door. Back home, I slide the PS3 575 behind the deed in my binder, origin beside imposter, and label the tab USP SUE. The red tape on the cabinet seam catches the lamp and glows. Outside, the carrier's truck sighs at the curb, and for the first time in a week I don't feel like flinching when the lid slams. Paper has a way of pointing, and today all of it points back where it began, my name, at my address, under my hand. We meet in the library's small conference room, the kind with a glass wall so everyone behaves, and a timer clipped to the light switch, so no one stays past their hour. I set my binder on the table and slide out 3 stapled packets labeled conditional offer and family agreement. I place a pen on each, like silverware before a meal no one wants. These are my terms, I say, and hear the steadiness in my voice, as if it belongs to someone else. Some nurse who has given bad news gently enough that people could still stand afterward. They are not punishment. They are boundaries written down so none of us has to guess. My daughter-in-law sits with her coat still on, arms crossed like a door at half-latch. My son watches the floor, then the window, then the window's reflection of the floor. I begin. 1. You withdraw all access. Bank portals, alarm cameras, county records. You send the revocations yourself, in writing, with copies to my attorney. 2. A written apology and retraction to the mortgage servicer, the tax office, and the locksmith whose invoice I paid. You will state plainly that I am competent to manage my affairs. 3. Reimbursement for cost to date, locksmith, certified mail, fees, by cashier's check. 4. We agree to family counseling, weekly for 8 weeks, paid by you. 5. Property retrieval happens only by schedule in daylight, with an inventory everyone signs. 6. You acknowledge here, in this document, that title is mine alone and that you will make no claim to the property now or later. 7. Non-disparagement. We do not tell stories about each other that aren't true. I slide the top packet across. Inside, every condition has a line for initials, because I know how people skim when they want to be forgiven without changing. For your safety, my daughter-in-law says. Automatic, like a reflex tap on a tendon. We did what we did for your safety. For my safety. I repeat, and let the words settle like dust where they belong. Then this will be easy. Safety survives documentation. My son flips the first page. He has my husband's long fingers. My father's habit of pressing his thumb into his palm when he's trying not to shake. I watch the small tide of red at his eyes crest and break. I'm sorry, he whispers, and the chair under him makes a sound like a confession when he leans forward. He cries, not loudly, not theatrically. Just a man whose scaffolding has finally admitted it cannot bear weight. His wife stands so fast her chair ticks against the wall. I won't be part of this performance, she says and walks out, her coat catching on the door handle the way a story catches on its own loose thread. The glass wobbles shut, leaving her shape behind like breath on a mirror. I keep my hands folded. You don't have to sign today, I tell my son. I pull a second-page free signature instructions. Take it to the notary at the UPS store. Bring a witness. Mrs. Carter has already agreed if you need one. Deadline is Friday at 5. Deliver to counsel. No emails. No text paper. He nods, his face blotchy in its honesty. She'll be angry. She can be, I say. Anger is not a key. I turn the timer on the wall down to 10 minutes, a ritual to keep us from lingering in apologies. This is how we unlock what's left. You initial each boundary you'll keep. We let a stranger watch us sign so the future believes us. Then we try counseling. He takes a pen. The room narrows to paper and ink and breath. I resist the urge to touch his hand. That is love, this is governance. Both are mine to offer, but only one will hold if the other fails. Outside, the December light has the thin, silver quality of a fresh scar. Inside, the signature lines wait, quiet, blank, mercifully precise. I've learned forgiveness is not a door that swings by sentiment. It is hardware installed correctly. Locks and keys, mortgages like medications, can be rewritten when the side effects get worse than the disease. At the credit union, the loan officer wears a cardigan and the kind of patience you usually only see in oncology. We sit at a desk that has a pen on a chain and a stack of blank forms that smell faintly of toner. Rate and term refinance, she says, tapping a checklist. New loan number. New servicing, you decide who can speak to us. You decide how we speak to you. I open my binder to the tab that has become a spinos. Go Varney and CE. I slide out proofs the way a nurse lays instruments in order. Deed, audit log, the doctor's capacity letter, the cease and desist, the incident number from the police. She doesn't need all of it, but I do. Paper takes the trimmer out of a hand. We build the application like a careful chart. Income verified, debt listed. The existing mortgage balance to the penny. Under communications, I say paper statements only to this P.O. box. Under authorization, I say no third parties. Not now. Not without a notarized letter and a recorded call with me. She adds a verbal password that lives only in my mouth and changes the recovery email to one no one else knows. Will retain servicing, she says. Your account will not be passed around. The words land in me like solid food after a fast. The disclosures arrive in a neat electronic stack loan estimate, right to cancel privacy notices. I read every page, print them anyway. An initial corners until my name starts to look like a brand. Closing is set for Friday in a side room with a fake fern and a closer who narrates every page out loud like a priest who still believes in sacraments. I sign the note, the deed of trust, the escrow disclosures. A new loan number is born, 8 digits that feel like a fresh chart on a clean bed. Then the choreography. I move auto, pay from the standalone account I opened to the new loan, set alerts for withdrawals and profile changes, and anything over $20, instruct the escrow department to mail every analysis and shortage notice to the P.O. Box not to a townhouse with a swing I helped hang. Well, flag your file, the escrow analyst says. No address changes accepted except by mail. Notarized. I hear the word mail and think of veins, rotes that deliver exactly where they should, or not at all. When the old servicer posts pay fell, I print the letter and slide it behind the new welcome packet. The credit union emails third, party policy, borrower only with my initials stamped next to every line. The bank places a permanent no third, party discussion banner across the profile like a sterile drape. The escrow account acknowledges the P.O. box with a tidy line, primary mailing address P.O. Box 1432. The confirmations arrive twice, digital and paper, and I keep both because redundancy is not paranoia, it's architecture. By Monday, my son texts I got a letter from the bank. It says my access is removed. I imagine the envelope in his hands. The polite corporate prose that explains there is no longer an account he can peek into, no portal that remembers him. I picture the way disappointment and relief can look like the same expression if you tilt your head. I answer with 4 words that have become my backbone. Please contact through counsel. It's not a victory lap, it's a floor finally level. I file the new loan number under mortgage. See you in the paid, in full under Liji Shiwai. Silosid and I feel something in the house settle, a beam catching. The third stares old grown answering with a quieter one. Escrow will pay the county when taxes come due. The statements will come to the box with my key. If a stranger asks who may speak for this loan, the computer will say, Elaine, and the person will say, only. I didn't change my son. I changed a loan and the rules that live around it. Boundaries don't fix people. They fix processes so people can choose who to be inside them. Outside, the porch light finds the new brass and gives it back as a small, steady star. Inside, the file closes with a click you can hear. The kind that reminds you a door shuts properly when the frame is true. By March, the paint aisle smells like a fresh start. I choose a color called Early Sparrow, not quite white, not quite cream, the way hope rarely arrives in absolutes. I tape the doorframe with blue painter's tape, sand the nick where the delivery guy clipped the jamb last winter, and brush in long, careful strokes that make the wood remember it is tended. Above the porch, I hang a wind chime I bought from the hardware store, a tempered glass disc and 4 slim tubes that sound like the shy end of a song. When the breeze lifts, it speaks in syllables I don't yet know but want to. The house gets quieter as I work, as if it understands there is a difference between silence that punishes and quiet that heals. Inside, the binder sits on the hall table, tabs squared, locks documented, the legal bones set straight. I have learned that you can rebuild structure and still leave room for air. We had scheduled this, like civilized people do, Saturday at 2. Daylight, no surprises. When my son turns up the walk, he keeps both hands visible, which is a small courtesy and a big relief. He looks younger without worry. Or maybe just unfinished, like paint drying. I meet him at the top step, but don't cross the threshold. Boundaries can be gentle and still be boundaries. I brought these, he says, and holds out a flat envelope and a folded letter. The envelope is a cashier's check, amount matching the invoice in my file locksmith. Certified mail fees, with a memo line that says reimbursement in someone else's neat hand. The letter is his. He used a fountain pen I gave him when he got his first job. Blue, black ink that doesn't forgive corrections. He writes that he is sorry without the scaffolding of because. He writes that he understands the difference between help and control. He writes that he will comply with every term. I nod. Because sometimes the best thing you can do with a heartfelt sentence is not talk over it. The wind chime dings. He glances at it like it's a test he hopes he passed. Come sit, I say, and point to the top step. We sit side by side like people waiting for a bus that will take them someplace they haven't decided on yet. The door behind us is new brass certain. Out front, the maple invents small green. I don't know how to fix what we did, he says, and I notice the plural has thinned. But I want to do the work. Then let's work, I say. I'll propose something with structure. I keep my eyes on the street so he can listen without performing. Family therapy. Someone who isn't invested in our history except to keep us honest. 8 sessions to start. We show up on time. We talk in first person. We own our verbs. He breathes out like he has been underwater. Okay. He says, the word landing flat and true. Not a promise, a plan. For the first time in months. He nods before looking to someone else for approval. It is a small movement, but it changes the shape of the afternoon. We don't solve anything there on the step. That isn't how problems end. It's how meetings do. But we agree on Tuesdays at 6, a counselor midtown who still prints calendars and offers tissues, not platitudes. I text him the address. He adds it to his phone and then, unprompted, writes it on the back of his letter as though doubling the record could make it more real. When he stands, I do too. We are clumsy at parting, like people who haven't practiced being kind at the door. He touches the chime. It answers lightly. It sounds like something good, he says. It sounds like something true. I answer and tuck the envelope and letter into the binder's new sleeve. Restitution and a POOY. Inside, I slip the cashier's check behind the locksmith invoice, origin and outcome sharing a page. After he leaves, I pull the tape from the doorframe. The line it reveals is clean enough to make me smile. This is what a boundary should look like. Not a wall that refuses, but a line that shows you exactly where to place your hand if you want to be let in. The chime catches another breeze and says it twice. We keep the dinner plain on purpose. Roast chicken, a bowl of green beans that squeak against the fork, store bread warmed in the oven so it thinks it's homemade. I set 2 plates and a third for later on the counter, a quiet olive branch for the part of the family that isn't ready to sit yet. The wind chime at the porch gives a few deliberate notes and then rests, as if the house has learned how to take a breath. After we eat, I wipe the table with the same patience I used to teach hand washing to new nurses. Then I carry the binder to the bedroom, place it in the safe, and turn the dial, right, left, right, until the lock falls with that satisfied clunk that means somebody read the directions. Deed, audit logs, letters, escrow statements, receipts. The story of a winter no one will misremember because the paper remembers for us. I close the safe and, for the first time in months, don't check it twice. We sit again, but this time the chairs face one another. I take out a single sheet titled House Rules and a pen that doesn't smudge. We put the law before the feelings. I say, not to diminish feeling, but to keep it from rearranging the furniture when no one is looking. We write what's true, then we talk about what's hard. My son nods, eyes steady. In therapy, we learned the simplest verbs are the most reliable. I read each rule and wait for his yes. No access without consent and schedule. No changes without notarized permission. Mail to the P.O. box. Alarm code belongs to me. Conversations through counsel when we slide off the rails. He agrees, signs dates. He doesn't apologize again. He doesn't need to. The ink is apology enough because it binds him to what he says. We talk about the porch light and what it means to leave it on for each other. Not an invitation, that will always be explicit now, but a sign the house is doing what houses do, holding warmth at the edges. He asks if he can fix the sticky hinge on the pantry door next time. I say yes and write Tuesday, 5-6 p.m., hinge on the calendar. It looks like nothing. It looks like everything. When he leaves, I make tea and take out a blue folder stamped estate planning. I have an appointment next week with a woman who drafts wills that don't pretend to be love letters. I will name an independent executor. I will leave instructions no one can misread. The house is not leverage or a leash, it is shelter. I will give keepsakes with notes that say why, and money with a clause that refuses to buy control of the living. I will write that I want a memorial with cheap coffee and honest stories. I will say that the person who inherits anything does not inherit me. The wind picks up, and the chime answers with a sound like glass deciding to be music. I picture my will signed on heavy paper, witnessed by strangers who owe me only their accuracy. The future will have its weather. I am sending it with a map. Before bed I walk the rooms. The third stair offers its old, companionable groan. The doorframe wears its early sparrow line like a healed scar. In the dark kitchen, the hinge is still sticky. Tuesday can fix that. I rest my palm on the safe, not in fear but in thanks, and feel the small radiant warmth of a house that was almost taken by a story and came back by a signature. I did not win, I aligned. I took back my dignity and gave the home back its meaning. Love can live here, because control cannot. The lock holds. The door opens when asked. The chime tells the truth even when no one is listening. That is what a house should do, and what a home should promise. Winter taught me that love, left unguarded, can mistake possession for protection. I used to believe a home was held together by recipes and holidays, by the groove on the third stair and the way sun gathers on the sink at 4. Now I know a house becomes a home only when respect fits the lock. The paper trail I stitched, deeds and letters, timestamps and small, stubborn facts, wasn't a weapon, it was a lantern. I carried it through the snow until the door knew my name again. There were tears and there were exits. There were Tuesdays marked for therapy, a calendar that looked like a promise learning how to stand. My son's apology did not rewind what was done, but it set the frame true so we could hang the future on it. The wind chime above the porch speaks a quiet grammar boundary, then welcome, rule, then grace. I have learned to answer in that language. People say dignity is an armor. It isn't. It's a seam, neat, strong, nearly invisible, holding the fabric where it's most likely to tear. I stitched mine back with procedures and signatures, with a P.O. box key pressed warm into my palm. I didn't choose pride over love. I chose conditions under which love can live here without starving. The locks are not a verdict. They are a vow. Tonight I set plates for who we are, not for who we were afraid of becoming. After dinner I slide the folder into the safe and turn the dial. Right, left, right, listening for the click that says memory will not be rewritten by convenience. The porch light hums. The chime answers, and I stand in my doorway, a little older, a lot steadier, believing something simple and difficult. I am allowed to open my own door, and I am allowed to decide who steps through it with me. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments, where do you draw the line between protection and control? Would you have handled the keys differently? Tap like. Subscribe to Telling Story with Me for more first-person family dramas, and share this episode with someone learning to set healthy boundaries. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.